think it's really important nowadays to be a good steward, because all of agriculture, if not especially the cattle industry, is under a lot of scrutiny by consumer groups and by enemy groups especially, as to what we do and how we do it, and whether it's sustainable and whether it's environmental. And I think then we as producers have to listen to that rhetoric, and we have to try to adjust if possible. But we have three things that we're considering when we try to stay sustainable and try to remain as good stewards. We have to worry about the economics. We're here to make money, but we also have to worry about what our environment is, whether we're good for the environment or not, and lastly, what our society thinks about our sustainability. So I think those three things are really important to me, and I'm willing to model for people. I'm willing for a consumer to come look, or a critic to come look, and show that especially grazing is a very sustainable practice. And we're using land that shouldn't be used for anything else, really. And we're using it effectively, and we're producing a high protein food from it. And our land is better for it, really. Well, rotational grazing is really the basis for our whole operation here, because it's so good for cattle and so good for your forages. You get maximum production and health out of your forages. You get near perfect weed control. One of the things you see in this pasture and most of our pastures is we don't really have to worry about weeds. Cattle they become really easy to handle in a rotational system, because you're moving them every 4 or 5 days and a lot of the year. And so they're used to being handled. They respond very well to calling. You don't drive them, they just go where you want them to. There's so many advantages. You don't have any fence pressure to speak of. Your cattle are always going to really the best grass that you have in the system. So you don't have any fence pressure. Cattle really aren't worried about fences. They're just worried about grazing. So it works really so well in so many ways. You know, it's a system where we watch grass every day, not just the grass that the cattle are grazing right at the moment, but the grass is out ahead, so that we know where the cattle are today, where they're going to be tomorrow, where they're going to be next week, where they were last week. We're going to keep real strict records of this, so that we're always assuring that our grasses at least get a 30-day rest, if not 35 or 40 days of rest. This assures the viability of our forages in that rest period. We're able to work our whole system to the very best efficiency that we can by doing that. We want to really guard the health of our pasture and our forages in it. We don't want to, especially this time of year in the spring, we don't want to take more than 50% of our growth. 50% of our growth affects very little of the root viability of the plant, but 60% of the growth, or 70% of the growth, if we take that much, causes a much greater adverse effect on the root system. Okay, well, one of the most important things in a rotational grazing system is water, obviously. You can't just have paddocks, pasture sizes everywhere without a water source. So our water source for this pasture and 2 pastures behind me actually is this pond. And the pond is fenced so cattle can't get into it, because we want to protect the banks for its longevity. What our watering system is here, since we can't use electricity or can't use gravity in any way, our system is a ramp, which we constructed into the pond by digging a 15-inch deep trench, and then laying down geotextile fabric in that, about 15 feet wide, and then fencing that after we filled it with 2-inch gravel. Probably this one took about 40 ton. The slope on this ramp would be 4:1 approximately, and then a little finer gravel on top to make it a little easier for cattle to access it. And they can merely walk down the ramp without damaging the pond in that manner, and get a drink, and we can use this any time of year. Summertime is great, but wintertime, all you need is an axe or a chainsaw to crack ice, and you've got your water there as well. The EQIP program helps you with fencing, helps you with establishing those watering areas, and it's just a solid program that everybody can take advantage of in some way. And we've done that with our pasture management plan and our rotational system. We've done that with our woodland management, with TSI, timber stand improvement practices. And we've done that with our comprehensive nutrient management plan, which was EQIP funded as well when Frank and Wes prepared that for us. I find cattle really fascinating. I really like cattle. I really enjoy this system because cattle love a rotational grazing system so much. They know that every time I let them know that we're going to go to a new paddock, they're getting the best meal that they can probably get there for the next 4 or 5 days. And so they're really easy to handle. They just become your friend totally. And I really enjoy that aspect of it. I enjoy seeing them do well. In the setting that we're in right now and what we saw of our cattle this morning, they're happy. The environment is happy. The animals, the wild animals around us are happy. It's a great system.